the Lucifer thing is interesting because when you talk to people who are more of the occult conspiracy mindset, they look at the elite and they look at weird things like, why is there a Prometheus statue at Rockefeller Center? Why are there these weird allusions to like old gods and old mythology that we just don't have a modern context for? But certain people high enough up the food chain really seem to put a lot of emphasis on this when it's kind of bizarre. And I think part of the unknown aspect of that is the download experience. It is where they might have a better understanding of where technology comes from and where ideas come from. And they might have tapped into ways to have more download experiences and stay at the forefront of everything. And it's a creative idea. I mean, maybe some of the award shows are just razzle dazzle for the sake of it. But when you look at some of the content, it's like, wow, why is that going on at the Super Bowl halftime? Why is that going on at the Grammy Awards? There's a lot of symbolism that you could parse there if you have that kind of language. Like I've never really developed the symbolic language necessary to read it, but I talk to people who have it, who've read the old books, and they're like, this is old magic that they're doing, and it's just been stripped out of our understanding. I find that stuff pretty interesting, but it does play with, the ideas of Lucifer and technology and spirits and entities and where things come from and how we might have been conditioned away from understanding it. But some people on the planet today understand it quite well.
Yeah, I've Kelly Chase and I have talked about this quite a bit on her show. And I was visiting a major, like Midwestern city earlier. Well, I guess end of last year to give a lecture. And I'm walking around downtown with one of my sons, and I live in a very small town in Kansas, right? And so when you go to a big city, I'm always struck, like, wow, there's like a winged griffin on every building down here, right? Yeah. Or like there's always this giant, nothing, I don't want to get into like, but there's a giant Masonic temple downtown always, right? And there's, every building, it's like, it's got this strange antenna-like thing, and there's a Prometheus statue, and it gets you thinking, okay, and this was all kind of put together in the 19th century. Think of the expense that was involved in doing that. And it's sort of the dominant architectural themes in our cities are not Christian. They seem to be some kind of Neopagan occult thing. Okay. Yeah. And then right after that, it was like a week later, I was giving a lecture at another university in a major or a Midwest, the capital of a Midwest state, right? And I took my son to see the Capitol building. I'm looking around like, man, it's like everything is mythologically themed. There's all these interesting designs in the floor that are sort of evolution, but then seemingly mediated through the Greek mythology. Very strange. And I'm thinking, what is going on there, right? And one of the ways I've come to think about this is okay, so it's very like cognitive scientists like to do simulations, like computer simulations of termites, okay? Because termites are really, really easy to simulate. They have like 2 instructions. It's like, make mud ball, roll till something smells like you, leave it there. Okay, then go back and repeat. And then it stacks up the termite mound that way very easily. And there have been all sorts of computer simulations where you make a bunch of little simulates, with just those 2 instructions, and you get the same intricate, beautiful cathedral-like structures doing that. Okay. What's interesting is no termite knows it's building like this sort of cathedral. It's just going about the motions, and out of that emerges this massive structure. Okay. That's really beautiful. Okay. Another example, this is, some people, like when they build college campuses now and they put up a new building, a lot of times now they don't put sidewalks in immediately. They just let the kids walk. And then where the trails like naturally develop in the grass, then they're going to put a sidewalk over that. Because if you put the sidewalk down, the kids are just going to cut around you. Okay. And who knows, like, are they going to like want to go to the gym before lunch on their way to the chemistry building, or are they going to go to the chemistry and then the gym and then the lunch? And is that going to change, the structure? So you have to just like turn the humans loose. and see what they do. But if you do that, from that emerges like this concept, the right pathway, the most efficient pathway, but no one decided to do it. Okay. So I've begun to wonder how much of our public spaces are basically ritualized, right, in ways that are beyond your and my ken.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and like is the architecture guiding us in these ways? Because it's got this weird theme to it. Like how much of it are we sort of like termites participating in some kind of ritual thing, right? Unbeknownst to us, just following our basic instructions.
Yeah, I love this kind of thing. And it is really stretching the bounds of my cognition, these areas, which is really where the show should always be going. But an idea recently that was coming up was just the relationship between architecture and space and our consciousness, that you go into a cathedral to be inspired and think in a different way. And if there was a controlling elite that wanted to limit the masses' cognition in many ways, they'd probably start with bad food and toxic water and lead pipes and all this shit that we really have. But another way, if you were going to stack mechanisms, would be to put people in uninspired square buildings compared to all the options that could exist for inspiration and creativity. We could live in circular hobbit huts. We could live in buildings with see-through roofs, so we do see the stars at night. You know, maybe you do a lot of light pollution also to limit the inspiration that comes from the stars. But I think there's something really compelling there when you get into architecture and how it affects thought. And that's why there's a big alternative idea right now that's really popular, this idea of resets, that maybe there's mechanisms for catastrophe that we don't quite understand or aren't explained to us. Like you could say a solar flare or some kind of plasma event. And maybe these things happen every so often. And this is the real reason why the billionaires build bunkers and everyone goes underground. And then they reemerge to be the rulers of the next round when most of us have been wiped away. And what do? They move into those old buildings, those old inspired buildings that become the courthouse, the state building, the university of the new state religion. And they didn't necessarily build them. They moved into them. And that's why you go into a city and you see such a discrepancy between the artistic aesthetic style of some of the quote unquote oldest things that even the city would have built and everything else. And I think that's why people like that idea of a reset.
You know, and you gave the example of a cathedral, right? Well, what did cathedrals do in the Middle Ages is, you know, the vast majority of the population at the time is illiterate, right? And the mass is in Latin. Okay. And okay. So, but what did the cathedral do? If you brought people in, it made them look up. Okay. It's full, like the stained glass. It's pictures. It's a pictorial representation of what's going on there. Okay. So what did it do? It let the termites be participants in things they didn't understand. Like that's what a cathedral did. I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm not saying this was terrible, but what else would you do with an illiterate population that you were trying to get to participate in something that's like metaphysically very, very complex? You know, you would find a way to treat them like a termite. Okay. Maybe that's unfair, but all right. Well, so I think we can see that like that. Well, you know, the church wasn't the only people to think of that. And I think we have that going on in our cities. Right. Another thing is, okay, it could be and that was a conscious design decision by someone to build cathedrals that way. Okay. That they knew what they're doing. But also this could be something that goes on at a higher level of like hyper objective reality that, you know, even like the elites are being pipelined into doing this, right? Because, you know, as soon as like we introduce certain technological innovations, like they get off and running, and next thing you know, we're all living in houses that don't let us see the sky, and there's light pollution, and now that's building on itself, right? So we're becoming more and more obsessed with the wrong things. And essentially a different kind of God is available to us now than what was otherwise available to us. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this gets really into the realm of kind of Gnostic thinking that the elite are kind of possessed by Archons who kind of keep the limitations in place. They might not even be consciously aware of it. That's kind of a big debate in conspiracy land is, are the elite engaged in really dark blood rituals to extract power from some dark entities? Or are dark entities able to recognize where power is on this physical plane and kind of possess them into controlling us and putting us in these little prisons of our own making? And I think it's a compelling idea. I mean, this kind of came up with you and Diana Pasulka talking about Plato's cave. And there was one point where you said to her, the people you've met from the intelligence agencies are happy with the cave arrangement. Hey, people love their caves. Keep them in there. And we're going to actively try to create new caves for people. And I just thought that was really well articulated because, I mean, we might have layers of illusion and you might break through one. And you're like, oh, now I see the real reality. And you're only in another box that's been crafted. So we might have a hyper metaphysical box and it might scale all the way down to the actual people in the invisible college that want us to think of this stuff in a militaristic context when really it should be thought of in a consciousness context or a hyper object context.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually Plato has a story he tells that actually fits really well with it. So I break out of this cave. Let's say the UFO is your occasion. It wakes you up. Oh my gosh, UFO is a real thing. Okay. But now you start reading books and you start encountering people and stuff like that. Well then, but who says that that's not itself somehow a play that's being done for you? Right. And then say you break beyond that. Well then maybe, that's one. And do we ever get to the bottom of it? Well, I wonder, because no matter what, we have to sort our experience for relevance. Like humans, whether we like it or not, we need a cave. We are limited beings. We need a cave. So we're always going to be put on either by ourselves or someone else. It's always going to happen. And so I think for me is why philosophy is never done. It's never done. We always have to sort of if philosophy is know thyself, you're never done with that. There's always the chance that you've put yourself on or someone else is putting you on. You always have to put it to critical question, right? Because as soon as you get somewhere, you're going to try to hold on to it, and then it's going to become a cave.
Can you believe it, people? A video clip and a peek into how that sweet THC sausage is made. For some people, I'm sure it's nice to put a face to the name, so I started making clips that are a little more YouTube friendly than the full show tends to be. Get the full show on any podcasting platform. I prefer to keep it audio only, so we have a more decentralized distribution for a controversial show, and also so I can edit out the ums and ahs and barking dogs and all the things that happen when a person records in their home environment. And then if you really like the show, you can sign up for THC Plus, and instead of 1 hour interviews, you get the full 2 hour interview for just $8. I think that's a better deal, more of a win-win than asking you to support the show by booking a therapy session or buying generic Viagra. It's getting weird out there, folks. So just go to the highersidechats.com or click the link at the top of any set of show notes and all your wildest dreams will come true. All right? All right.
The Higherside Chat Show, Greg Carwood.